On this episode of ResiWeek, Nexia and home automation. Also talk about standardization and big players getting into the Resi market. All that and more. Next on ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 21, recorded Monday, June 26th, 2016. One hub to rule them all. ResiWeek is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like Milestone AV.
Good afternoon. This is ResiWeek, your weekly wrap-up of all the latest stories and news coming out of the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott, for AVNation TV. Today, I am joined by two of my good friends. First, we have from Residential Systems, Jeremy Glowacki. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And last but not least, we have Joe Whitaker from The Thoughtful Home.
Glad to be here again. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I like that we both have swivel chairs.
Yes. Yeah, I can't live without them.
Jeremy, do you have a swivel? Oh, yes. We can all. We got to do it in time. Everybody in time. Oh, look at that. Stretching. I love it. See, this is what people come to this show for. Comedy. Let's jump right in. Coming to us from Strategy and our good friend Ted Green. Did you hear that, Ted? Ted Green. He wrote an article about Nexia bringing echo-based voice control to home automation. Now, we've been talking a lot about voice control and what our clients and customers are looking for when it comes to voice control. And going through this article, it's talking about how Nexia is essentially just allowing all of its products or certified products to work through Amazon Echo. Kind of a big deal, kind of important. My question for you, Joe, let's start with you. Is this a big deal? Does this matter? Do you know of Nexia?
So the first thing I'll say in this is to all the people who are viewing ResiWeek right now, how many of you guys have ever sold or heard of Nexia? The number's going to be very little.
No.
And the thing about Nexia is I personally had never even heard of it. And they are a hub, so it's just like an Iris hub or anybody else's hub. It's just another hub. They do not have any devices. And if you look at their literature, their business model, and everything else, they specifically say we have a limited amount of products that we work with because basically we're picky. But what that tells me is the company is not IoT ready. So adding a big name IoT device in there like the Echo and Alexa doesn't matter.
In the door.
They're already limiting their items on IoT. So at that point, it's like, okay, it's a big deal because, yes, another person is recognizing Alexa and Echo. No, it's not a big deal because it's another company that one that I know is buying, no one that I know knows about, and it just gets a small article somewhere that, hey, somebody else recognizes that voice control is cool and it's all the rave, and that's about it.
Now, Jeremy, does it, because I understand your point completely, Joe, but Jeremy, does it matter that it's a division of Ingersoll Rand and another big firm like that who's kind of jumping on board?
Yeah, I mean, I think of Ingersoll Rand as more of a commercial, big, like industrial type of a brand more than anything consumer electronics. It's a really strange name to all of a sudden see in an IoT type space. I definitely had never heard of this product before. I looked at all of the products, and I saw more products that it was compatible with than I think Joe's giving it credit for. I mean, there were a lot of different devices there that were name brand devices, but I don't see where they're going to get any traction without any name recognition. It's great that there's this hub that you have a device that links together all of these things into one app. I think that's great in theory. I think that's where a lot of these devices are headed and should be headed. I don't think the individual app approach to IoT is the way to go. I think it's a hassle for most people. But I don't know if this thing's going to go anywhere, even with the Ingersoll Rand name behind it, just because why have I never heard of this? Like, credit to Ted Green for finding this.
Oh, definitely.
And I have to whisper the name Alexa because she might be listening in my house. But yeah, I don't want one of those crazy loops that I've gotten into when I've been listening to a podcast talking about Alexa, and Alexa wakes up and suddenly we're playing songs a second apart, and it's bizarre. But I do think that voice control is a buzz right now. It's something that everyone is trying to figure out, and Amazon's really got the most media attention so far, and it's the most probably workable product, most functional product that's out there for voice. But I don't know. I'm going to watch this company a little bit more, this product, because it's news to me.
The kind of bigger question I have about this story in general and this concept in general is, do we really need more hubs to work with Alexa, or would we not rather have Alexa work directly with those devices? Right. To me, that makes the most sense. I don't want a couple winks and whatever else you want to throw in there running it, unless they're actually running everything else in the house and it's a one-stop connection. Is that not kind of where we see the use case for Echo, Joe?
Well, yes and no. I would say yes, because obviously Amazon, when you look at it, they own that, and they have every manufacturer listed in their shopping space. If they wanted to, they could get all the information and data and everything from Sony to Philips Hue to everybody and integrate it all. The problem that everyone is always going to have, unless Amazon actually steps up to the plate, is being able to integrate farther than Ethernet, because you have all these other devices that have their own RF antennas like Lutron and Cassetta, and then you have Zigbee stuff, and you have Z-Wave stuff, and you have Bluetooth mesh stuff, and you have all this other stuff, and those little things that call themselves standards are the reason why these hubs are used. Just like Philips Hue, you have to use their hub to hook it to HomeKit.
When I'm not saying get away from the hubs,
I'm using the version because they're using these other wireless technologies other than just your Ethernet based in the home.
But that hits that whole point of, do we need an actual automation platform standard, or do we need Amazon to be able to talk to all these separate devices?
No, what we need is a Lord of the Rings hub.
Ooh.
One hub to rule them all. One hub that's got every freaking antenna you can think of, and that can have an interface, and that can talk to it all. And if Amazon can figure out a way to build that into their speaker that looks like a can, great, awesome. Now we have a very compelling product. No one will step up to the bat, though.
Oh no, I don't see it. But since you mentioned Smart Hub, let's move on to a story from Residential Systems. Jeremy, this is your mag, and an article from our good friend Jason. He's a good friend of the show, and someone we should have on more. But notwithstanding, he's talking about essentially how Apple's getting serious about the smart home, and how they kind of launched into this pretty heavy at WWDC, which all of us Apple junkies watched a little religiously, even though it wasn't incredibly exciting. This is one of those things that I got really excited about because I'm personally a big Apple guy. I like the idea of HomeKit. I always have. I have always thought that it's going to work effectively and natively within the system. Jeremy, starting with you, is HomeKit as big of a deal as we think it is? And primarily, the one thing that Jason wrote in this that just kind of hit me off as kind of the key to it and key to Apple doing it is that the mainstream smart home will rest on interoperability, reliability, and ease of use. So I guess I'm asking you two questions. How important is HomeKit? How important is it going to be down the road? And is Apple or Amazon, for that matter, the player to really hit these three key targets?
Well, I do think that Apple has a huge user base, obviously, and I'm a fan as well, and I want Apple to succeed because I love Apple products. But I don't think that there's as much market penetration with home automation and smart home as we who are in the industry really kind of sense that there are. So there are tons of people with Apple devices, and if this kind of becomes the Trojan horse that brings people to smart home, then I think that could be great. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know if people are clamoring for it as much as we think that they should be. They do make it pretty simple in terms of putting it in the control center of your Apple device, so you can be in the sleep mode or whatever on your phone or lock mode and flip up the screen and get right to your HomeKit in the way it's described at least. And you're able to create scenes like we're comfortable with, we're familiar with in this trade, this industry. So I think as that starts to happen, maybe people start to see the convenience of controlling their devices. But you still have to add those devices. You have to know about those different pieces of the home that you don't normally associate maybe with Apple. Right now you've got your entertainment devices, but you're not really controlling that much more than that. Am I forgetting something important here with Apple's?
No. I don't think
basically so. Infrastructure, but I do think that they've got the marketing power, the visibility to make this thing go if they really want it to go. That's the major difference, because so many of these other things, just like we were just talking about, you've never heard of a certain hub because whatever it is, it may be that it's a cable provider that's not in your market, that's just only getting a regional penetration, or it's this industrial player that's not been in consumer electronics and we just haven't heard of them. They're not marketing properly. It's a hardware store. It's a Lowe's or whatever. It's these little individual things. But Apple's Apple. They've got the power to do this right if they do want it, I think.
Well, and when we look at Apple and look at their history and what they did to the online music market and the cell phone market, they're kind of that player who, if they get all their ducks in a row, they can do something significant to this market. And I know I've talked for years about how our market is so small. Once one of the big players gets into it and puts money into it, it's going to change the landscape. Joe, what is it going to take for A, Apple to succeed in this, and B, how is it going to not affect us, but grow the market?
Well, one of the statements in this article that Jason did was kind of the most interesting to me, and it was the closing argument where he says Apple finally gets it. When I look at this, it's not that Apple finally gets it. Apple has gotten it for a long time. They're being cautious, which is good. I mean, we saw Microsoft LifeWare. We saw Android at Home attempt to launch. It never actually made it to a real launch. I got to play with the stuff. It was kind of cool. But, they jumped the gun. Mm-hmm. What I see Apple doing is not making a mistake they've made many times before. With the initial launch of the Apple Watch, the first rendition of Apple Music, things that were cool, and they were eventually going to work, but they were launched much too fast. Anybody who's ever dealt with Apple when it comes to making an app, there's a good example. You submit an app, it takes 6 months just to get the app through the app process, and then it could be up to a year before the app actually hits the store. Mm-hmm. I think the reason why we're not seeing a lot of devices available and kind of how it's stated in the article about a lack of momentum, I really don't think that is a lack of momentum. I think that is process. That is process that Apple has learned, process that they go through, and on the things they've been very successful with, they've stuck to that process and not deviated, like the iTunes Store, like the App Store. Those things they've been very successful with because they went through a long engineering, submission, review process before these things hit the market. And you better believe there's tons of manufacturers right now submitting that in, which is how it plays to us. So, the custom integrator, anybody who's in home technology professional and doing that kind of thing, we have to look at the fact that they are making a slow move into the market, but as they're moving, they're making it more and more visible to the consumer. Because at the end of the day, kind of like what's said in this article, matter of fact, is that It's going to give our consumers more visibility, comfort with home technologies and IoT. However, a large portion of the market doesn't want to stay up late at night and program all these things. However, they still want it. So I do see in the near future that HomeKit is going to be a part of the professional market, just like Nest is now, Philips Hue is now. I mean, don't think that, my company itself does not install Nest, does not install Rachio for sprinklers, does not do Doorbird for door stations, does all these consumer-facing products that sure the consumer could have got themselves, but instead we are the ones who are integrating it into the whole home platform. We're going to see the exact same thing with HomeKit, or HomeKit is going to, it's going to fail. Just like Iris and just like that other one, Wink. There you go.
But isn't Apple kind of uniquely positioned in the sense that all they need is to integrate, again, just as you mentioned, Hue, Nest, Sonos, and maybe a light switch from somebody, whether it's Caseta or whether it's...
True, but if they don't figure out the magic button that Amazon still needs on their Dot, how do you turn on and off the TV when these things happen? Of course. But aren't they the ones who, nothing against Amazon, but aren't they the ones who, if somebody's going to figure it out from a big business stance, isn't it most likely going to be Apple? Absolutely. And now that you say that from a business stance, Apple is the perfect example, because 90% of the Apple users out there that use it now, when they go buy a Mac or an Air or anything else they go buy, guess what they do? They take it to the Apple store, and those people set it up for them. Those people are not going to be setting up their HomeKit stuff in their homes.
Nope.
We're going to be doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where I know I just started playing with one of the new Lutron apps that pulls into Control Center. And Sonos just finally released something that gives you front lock screen control, which is ridiculous when you think about how long it took to get there. But given those iterations and what Apple's looking at doing here, to me it's a win-win. It's just going to be a matter of time before they have enough stuff available to make it work. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of ResiWeek. Jeremy, where can people find you?
You can read my stories on residentialsystems.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ResiEditor.
Very nice. Joe, people kind of know how to find you, but for the ones who don't, where can they find you?
You can find our company at thoughtfulhome.com. Find us on Twitter at thoughtfulhome, and see those hashtag Functional Friday videos at The Thoughtful Home on Facebook. And also, don't forget CDA 2016. Make sure you're there. It's going to be huge. Biggest thing since sliced bread.
Hold on. Is it gonna, wait. Is it going to be huge, or is it going to be huge?
It's going to be huge.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check. You never know. Well, thank you guys both for joining us and putting up with me on this episode. For myself, if you'd like to follow me, you can find me at Matt D. Scott or Omega Audio Video or OmegaAudioVideo.com. I'm pretty easy to find. Just type my name in Google and it'll do its thing. But most importantly, and definitely more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv and follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all that jazz. We're all over the place as AVNation TV. But when you stop by the website, you'll be able to watch previous episodes of this fine show, as well as a wide variety of other shows that we have that cover the industry. So definitely check that out. Thank you again so much for all your time, and check us out next week on ResiWeek.